The road to corporate America is wide, but very few have the courage, grit, and fortitude to set out on their own as a business owner. The beauty of the franchise model is that you're not on your own. In franchising, we always hear about the stats, 4,000 brands, 1 in 4 businesses, 30% year over year. But what about the people? The people that left the security of their 9-to-5 corporate job. They left steady raises, PTO, retirement plan, manage their own time, and stake a claim on their own future. Welcome to Untold Franchise Stories. I'm Carey Gille, your host and the CEO of Franchise Fastlane. I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset and have been in the franchising industry for over 20 years now, both as an executive and as a franchisee myself. But Untold Franchisee Stories isn't about me. I am not the hero of this story. The heroes here are ordinary individuals, and they finally did something about it by choosing the entrepreneurial path through franchising. Listen in and always remember this insight from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're exactly right. And we have a great one today. Holly, I am so excited to meet you. Tell me how to pronounce your last name so I don't miss this.
Sure, it's Turkovic.
Holly Turkovic
Yes.
from Pittsburgh, correct?
Yes.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you for joining us. And by the way, you and I have something in common because I am also an EverLine franchisee. I'm sure Anna told you that.
I know. That was like a definite vote of confidence whenever I heard that you guys became franchisees as well.
My husband runs it. We love the business. So I have those exact same, the signage behind you is in my home as well. We have Omaha. Holly is a franchisee in Pittsburgh. So I can't wait to hear it. So it was July of 2022, so almost 2 years. But rewind, I don't want to talk Everline first. I'd like to hear about your background. Just what led you to considering business ownership through franchising? How'd you get here?
My husband and I, every year in January, we do goal planning. And we look at different aspects of our life. So I'm talking bucket list. Where are we traveling? Where are we hiking? Where are we snorkeling? But we also look at things like legacy, faith, family, career. What did projects that we meant to do around our house last year that we didn't get to do? All of those different things. We look at all these different aspects of our life. And I would say over the last 12 years, there's one thing that we talked about every year that never changed. And it was going out on our own as business owners. And what made 2022 different for us was we kicked off the year. So we rented cabins at this park. We rented every cabin in the park for our family. And we had family coming in from Tennessee, from Virginia, from all across the country to celebrate my husband's 40th birthday. We arrive early on Thursday. Friday, my husband can't walk to the restroom because he can't breathe. He has COVID.
Oh, no. Oh, all the family's there and your husband has COVID. Oh, no.
Yes. And the whole reason we did it this way is because we wanted to have a celebration, but we knew it was during that time. And we knew if everybody has their own cabin, we could keep our distance. We could be outside. And his cousin Beth was coming in from Virginia, and she sent me a text message and said, I'm getting close. Do you need me to pick up anything? Ice, anything? And I said, can you pick up 2 COVID tests? And she said, oh man, are you serious? I said, yes. Long story short, we both end up with COVID. I take down all the decorations. I pack up. We go home. Our family stays and has a great time in this in the forest.
Happy 40th, honey. Happy 40th. Oh no.
Yes. Yeah. So we're at home. We're not working, and it's goal planning time because it's the beginning of the year. And we were binge watching The Chosen and Yellowstone while we were working to sort of, recover. And I said, well, we got so much more time to plan this year because neither one of us are working this week, but we were sick enough not to work, but not sick enough where we couldn't think. So we started talking about our goals, bucket list, what we were going to do this year in 2022. And I said, let me guess, this is going to be the year we finally go out on our own. And my husband said, well, you got to have money to make money. We don't have a ton of money. And he said, so just a little backstory for you. So my husband comes from industrial construction. So he's worked in industrial construction his whole life. I've worked in the nonprofit industry, so fundraising, program management, things like that. So two very different career paths, but we wanted to come together and start a business. So he kind of, his point was, hey, I really want to do something. Everything that I know how to do involves really expensive equipment and high insurance. How could we ever possibly afford this? So that's whenever I said I went to high school with somebody who actually owned a mosquito franchise for the last 20 years. And I wanted to reach out to him and so my husband's like, so what are you thinking? Like, are we going to doggy daycare? Like Chick-fil-A. Those were the two things that came to mind. And I'm like, I really don't know. We'll have to see. So we reached out, we learned about a handful of franchises. Um, we landed on EverLine because of their leadership, not because of the service, but because of their leadership, their values, their systems, and parking lots are
They're
everywhere.
everywhere. They're everywhere. We share this. And I see that you worked with BJ. Is that right? BJ Baca, incredible, such an expert. How did you find him?
I went to high school. Him and my
No.
husband went.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
he is 2 years younger than me, but 2 years older than my husband. So we all went to high school together. None of us really like hung out but we come from small town America and everyone. So so we went to high school together and I knew that he owned a franchise. And so I reached out to him and asked him, and he shared that he was a consultant and he would help us through the
Yes.
process.
Yes. So much respect for BJ. He probably, Holly, am I right in assuming he introduced you to several brands? Through the franchise inventory, he has access to some of the best brands in all of franchising. So he probably introduced you to several, and then you had to pair that back to Everline.
Yeah, he introduced us to five, actually. Um, and we met with him when we first got introduced to the first five. We knew kind of that weekend, like we talked to him on a Friday. We did our research that weekend. We actually went to a family game night that night and shared about the five with our family. And everybody was like, what? Parking lots? That's your favorite one? And we're like, listen, parking lots are everywhere, no matter what business you're in.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true. Look around. Look
They're
around.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So whether you're selling ice cream or it's a dance studio or whatever it is, you're all pulling into a parking lot. And the leadership really mattered. Had the leadership not been there and the strong values, then parking lots wouldn't have been so appealing. But because of the leadership and their values, that's what really stood out to my husband and I.
John Evans is incredible. He stood out to me too. And I talk to brands all the time. That's what I do. But John Evans absolutely stood out. And this was a brand when John called me, it was only in Canada, Holly. All of his locations were in Canada. And I was hesitant. I thought we have got to establish US presence before we really introduce this to potential franchisees. And he did. He established that US presence on his own. He proved the system worked in the US as well. In fact, it was even stronger in the US. We have some climate advantages over Canada in terms of maintaining parking lots. And then he just took off in the United States. Okay, this makes sense. So tell me, so you work with BJ, you work with on the Fastlane team, you worked with probably Mike Sampson and
Yes,
maybe
loved
TJ.
Mike.
Tell me, I want to hear about that. Loved Mike.
Well, so because my husband came from, it's not like we came from the business world. My husband came from industrial construction. He's been in the field working on tools. He worked in every aspect of construction. Um, and because I came from the nonprofit sector, and that was another reason why we were like, franchising has to be it because we need the systems to be in place for us. If systems are there, we could follow them. Um, so when it came time to meet with Mike, we were like, Mike, we do not have a business background at all. Like he gave me his cell phone number. I was able to text him and ask him questions. I remember he was out on a Friday night car shopping for his wife and he stopped what he was doing to answer questions for us. He just was really so helpful. He acted more as kind of like a mentor, I feel like, to us. He was just so super helpful. Like outside of the validation calls and the leadership calls and the worksheets and all of the tools and templates that are there, he was like my go-to anytime I had questions, and he made me feel comfortable early on. Sometimes you're like, okay, do I need to email this person, call this person, wait? Mike was like, no, don't waste your time. Shoot me a text message. If I'm available, I'll pick up the phone and call you.
And he's an EverLine franchisee as well.
I know.
So you're going, he probably knows how to talk to the brand. Oh, what?
So yeah,
Wow.
when he signed on as an Everline franchisee, my husband and I were kind of like, because when you first start out, there's just so much fear.
Of course. That was my
Um,
next question. You're ahead of me. How did you overcome that? Because there is, Holly, there is. There's so much fear. And I know you had to overcome. I want to hear that. I want to hear the emotional journey of getting there.
so, and this is full transparency here. So, March of 2022, we signed the paperwork. April, May, we participate in onboarding. June, we get approved and we get the loan. Go sign our SBA loan paperwork. And I'm excited. However, the minute we get in the car after signing the loan is when the fear set in for the first time. My husband and I have always lived pretty humble lifestyles. We like to travel. That's where we would spend our money. But we lived humble lifestyles. We always lived within our means. We really didn't have any debt. Like if we couldn't pay cash for it, we just didn't buy it. So now all of a sudden, my husband's quitting his job. Well, he quit his job. We're down to one income. We're making less money. And now all of a sudden, we have this huge debt. So something happened. Like when I signed that paperwork, I was super pumped. Like I remember like wanting to like jump over the counter and like hug the guy that, at Huntington Bank. But then the minute I got in the car, I just felt this huge sense of overwhelm. Like I need to do everything in my power to succeed. And it was, you jumped off the cliff. There's nothing you could do now. Like, it's, you just got to work hard. We had our grand opening in July. That following month, on July 14th, was our first day of business. And Eric came down from Canada to do our grand opening with us. And I hadn't really slept from the time we signed the paperwork in June.
Oh, I know. Holly, I've been there. Oh, I know. I know. I know.
Well, I actually didn't realize I wasn't sleeping. I would go to bed and my mind would kind of spin and I would think and worry and plan ahead and try to like map everything out. Try to like have the answers for what could or would happen if one of 200 things happened. And I was thinking worst case scenario, like I was not in a good place. But here I wasn't sleeping and I didn't realize I wasn't sleeping, but like my cheeks were twitch. Like, how you get the eye twitch?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I was getting like the cheek twitch, arm
Yes.
twitches, leg twitches.
Oh, what stress
When
can
I
do,
was
how that
eating,
manifests. Yes. Yes.
my spoon or fork was shaking. And the week before we had our grand opening was my birthday. And I said to my husband, he planned a pool party for my birthday. I said, keep it simple, just have family over. We'll order takeout, we'll have a pool party. Well, before my pool party, I said to my husband, I need to go to the hospital. There's something wrong with me. So I went to the hospital because I was like, I can't be around my family like this because they're all going to think something's wrong with me. Like my whole body was like shaking. Well, here I literally hadn't slept. They diagnosed me with severe exhaustion. That weekend I slept, but that's basically the hospital said, you need to sleep. You are exhausted. You need to take medication to help you sleep. So every time I woke up, I just kind of heard, like anytime I was like, God, please take this fear from me. I never struggled with anxiety or fear or anything. I was kind of always just carefree, and but this was different. And I just would hear the words like, be still. That's it. Just be still and know that I'm God. And I was reaching out to everybody, all of my friends and family, like, please pray for me. Um, if you have any advice, like, I want to hear it. And that's whenever I got really, it's crazy. Business ownership has brought me closer to God than I ever have in my entire life. Um, because I had to be really intentional about fighting back to those lies and the fear that, you're like, that's the problem. So there was these messages in my head like, oh, if this doesn't work out, you're going to end up living in your mom's basement. You're going to lose everything, that you worked your whole life for.
Yes, yes, it's so true, and you just start living in that area of fear and thinking worst case scenario instead of the excitement of what you just I hear you. Yes.
My faith grew tremendously during that time, but it wasn't something that happened overnight. I had to be really intentional on what I allowed in my life. Messages, self-talk, people, because there was a lot of people. I mean, our family all was like cheering us on, friends were cheering us on, but everybody was kind of like, are you nuts?
Yes.
You know?
And by the way, we hear that all the time. That's how family and friends usually respond. Wait, 2 steady jobs and you're doing this? Are you crazy? And it is because it's so the road less traveled. It really is, Holly. So I get that. I love that your mom was there when you woke up, though, and she was there and she was taking care of you. I love that you were in this with your husband. I love that you were not alone in that journey. But when I just heard you say that this helped you grow in your faith, wow,
Oh,
that is
tremendously. So every morning I had to be intentional. I reached out to my husband's cousin, Susie. She's like a spiritual mentor of mine. And I was sharing with her like everything that I was going through. And she was never pushy, but she would ask me questions like, are you and Tony praying together? And I'm like, well, I mean, over dinner. And she's like, well, maybe you should start praying together. And I'm like, oh, I don't have time, and then she would say, are you digging into your Bible every day? Are you reading your devotional? Like she was just asking me, and I was saying no for most of her answers. No, I don't have time. I'm working a full time job. I'm trying to run the sales, marketing, and admin side of the business. Um, sharing all of this like frustration. Then she would just ask me questions. Well, so we have our grand opening in July, and Eric comes from Canada to open us. And you name it, it could have happened. My mom had to have hip surgery like the 2 days before we were having our grand opening. We had to have like a major construction situation at our house, like an emergency
of
happened
course. Of
like
course.
the week prior to that.
Oh,
So
man.
it was like we take out this loan. My husband quits his job. My mom all of a sudden has to have her
Mm.
hips worked on. And we have this major situation at our house where we have to spend all this money. Like you name it, it was happening. And I'm like, what is going on? So Eric comes, and my husband's probably like, this is who I am. This is and my husband's very to himself, quiet, and he's probably thinking, I sure hope she don't tell Eric that she was just in the hospital last week. And they didn't keep me overnight. They were just kind of like, here's medicine, go home, sleep. Um, but so we're on our way to our first job. And I said to Eric, like, when does this fear go away? Because he's like, so what questions do you have for me while we're driving? And I'm like, when does the fear go away? And he was like, well, he's like, I'd like to tell you that, quickly. He goes, but I think he was in year 6 at that time. And he was like, and I have I still to this day have some major challenges with it. It creeps up. He said, but you got to get it in check. He said, you got to get sleep. He was like, control what you can, make sure you have a sleep schedule. Like he gave me just some advice, and he just said, you know what, during the pandemic, a lot of Canada franchisees were dealing with their stress and anxiety and fear of the unknown because of how's the economy gonna. He said, so we addressed just this, and he kind of like made me feel better. And told me about the entrepreneurial curve and, like roller coaster. And so it kind of made me feel better that I'm not alone in it. But from that point on, from July on, is really when I just started being intentional, diving into my devotional every morning, reading my Bible. That was like my third, I call it like my vacation time, because it was like my 30 minutes every day that I have peace and I hear what God has to say about me and not what the lies that are kind of like were in my head. Are they there? Every once in a blue moon, they come back, but I know what to do. I
Yes.
know how
You
to
changed the
get.
soundtrack that was running in the background constantly, and that's so important. We are our thoughts. We are. But that's intentional to do that. And most people don't. That's so impressive, Holly, that you just stepped up and decided, I'm going to change this. That couldn't have been easy.
No, but it wasn't easy, but it was helpful. And I noticed the progress every day. So um, we were intentional about praying. We were intentional about reading, spending time in the morning with God, breathing. When we start to feel, overwhelmed or overworked, then we carve time out. Like just last weekend, like last week was a rough week. So we said, all right, we're celebrating all weekend. Like that's like we're enjoying life too. So Saturday we spent time at this stream. My dog was playing in the stream. My husband was fishing. Saturday, Sunday we went to a pirate game, but just kind of having that balance. And I didn't have that balance when we first started because the fear told me not to. Fear told me you sit your butt in front of this computer and you work in front of it and you do everything that you can from the time you open your eyes till the time you close your eyes at bedtime. And you do that every day, or else you're going to fail.
Fear tried to control you and
Yes.
limit who you were. It's incredible that you overcame the fear to take the step into business ownership. And what's unique about your journey is really the fear didn't hit until after that decision was made, but then it was paralyzing for you and you had to overcome it. I'm so impressed you did. I want to hear about this tattoo.
So, faith over fear, my first and only tattoo. But I didn't get that right away. I got it. So, in October of last year, we have what's called level 10 meetings. Level 10 meetings. I'm sure you're familiar. It's part of EOS. So last year, me and my husband are in a level 10 meeting. And it's in October. And our schedule, I'm sorry, it was in September. Our schedule was starting to like slim down. And I was really busy with my full time job. And I was trying to run the business. And I said to my husband, I said, I haven't done marketing the way I'm supposed to, like these last 3 weeks. And it doesn't look like I'm going to, like until after Christmas. I'm so busy with my full time job. My husband just said, why don't you quit? And I'm like, what? And he was like, why don't you quit? And I'm like, because one of us need to make like some money, And he was like, oh, we live modest lifestyles. We'll be fine. He said, Holly, this has been like God's opened up so many doors for us. God's made a way. So what makes you think he's going to stop now? And I said, yeah, I said, do you think that this is like the responsible thing to do? Like, really? And he goes, well, I mean, you're going to keep running into the same problem. Our schedule's going to get slim because your focus is divided. Your mind is divided between two different places. He said, it's been bothering you that like you don't have, yeah, like the mental capacity, you only have so much of it. And I said, are you? And he goes, oh, look at your computer. So my husband has this thing where he's sometimes in the meeting, but also checking emails while he's in the meeting. And I tell him, no, you need to focus. Like, and he goes, oh, did you see your email? And I go, no, like, cause I'm in a meeting with you. And he goes, look at your email. So he had just talked me into resigning from my full-time job. And I agreed because he made a really good point. Like, we're always going to have the same problem as long as my time and attention is divided. So I agreed. And then for me, it was like a confirmation from God. We got our first national contract. So that was kind of God's way of like, Holly, if you're constantly striving, you're
Yes.
not leaving room for me
Yes.
to be God and to
Yes.
help you.
You do this and then watch what I do.
The next Monday, I told my boss, hey, thinking about leaving NKF. Actually, I am. How do you want me to go about this? I really had a great relationship with her, all of my colleagues, and she kind of begged me to stay. And, one thing led to another. So I didn't end up leaving until December 7th, but they asked me, we're not going to turn in your resignation letter until next week. We want you to take some time to think about it.
Wow.
And I go, no, I've thought about
No,
it.
I know. I know. Yes.
And they said, well, we're not going to make it official until next week. So that's actually what spurred the tattoo. So I knew that I was going to have this time on my hand to think. And I thought, I need to get this in permanent ink. So I'll always remember that I need to have faith over fear. Fear would tell me, fear would talk me out of quitting. Fear would have said, hey, stay at your job. Yeah, stay there. That's where you have steady income, you have benefits, you have paid time off, flexibility. Fear would tell me to stay comfortable. Faith would say, hey, step out of the boat. Great things can happen, but they can't happen if you stay comfortable. So I do experience gifts for everybody that I love in my life, nieces, parents, husband. I don't buy like actual things. I do experiences and I let that person choose the experience. So my one niece, she's 30. She said she wanted a tattoo for her birthday, but she would not get the tattoo unless I got a tattoo with her. Well, I don't have any tattoos. So I said, Kayla, you're going to be waiting forever for that experience gift because I'm not getting a tattoo. So the day I put in my resignation and the day that my superiors at NKF said, hey, we'll give you till next week was the same day I called my niece Kayla and said,
Let's go.
hey, Kay,
Oh,
I'm ready to get our tattoos. Let's get them this weekend.
Goosebumps, Holly. That is so good. Oh, that is so good.
So
I
faith
love it.
over fear. And I got it on my, like the tattoo
Yeah, where you
artist
can
wanted,
see it. You can see it there though. Yeah. Yeah.
he wanted it to face like another direction. He was like, because you want other people to be able to read it. And I'm like, I really don't care what other people
This
want to
is
read.
about
I
me.
want it for me. Like when I'm washing my hair or doing, whatever it might be. I want to see this all the
This is
time.
about me. Oh, so
Yeah.
good. So
So,
good. And you're 2 years in, and now you
yes.
and your husband both fully focused on the business. How big is the
Yes.
team?
So, it's small, but it's growing. Right now, it's just myself, my husband. We have two full-time guys out in the field, two pavement maintenance technicians. Today, we just hired an office assistant with a goal that we really help her grow, professionally and personally. Here at Everline, we really want her to grow. So it's just me, and my husband. We just hired an office assistant and two guys in the field. However, we are constantly interviewing. So we're looking to add to our team, but we want to be really intentional on who we add. Um, I'm sure you know this, and you may hire on these same principles, but we hire people that have the driven values. So they don't necessarily come to us with experience in pavement maintenance. So we're really intentional on really building our team around that. So we're hoping this year that we'll have another 4 pavement maintenance
Wow,
technicians. So we plan to
incredible.
run 2 crews.
Very good.
Um,
And you have your first national account, sounds like?
well, we got it last year. We got
Got
it
it
towards the end of
last year.
last year. We finished it at the end of the year. But what we're hoping to do, so last year we started running 2 crews in October. We're hoping that, starting out the season a little bit slow, get everybody trained up, and we're hoping by June that we're running 2 crews. We'll see what happens, but that's our goal.
It was so meaningful to hear you. I like hearing about the business, Holly, but what gave me goosebumps was when you talked about the emotional journey that you went through and how being a business owner has helped you grow. It sounds like in your marriage, in your relationships with your family, and more than anything in your faith, which is now
Oh yeah,
exemplified by the
absolutely.
tattoo on your arm. that means who knows that when you think about considering owning your own business, all you think about is your time and the financial impact and your livelihood. What you just addressed was so much bigger. It was a higher level in terms of your emotional, spiritual growth as a person.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was kind of hesitant about getting into business is I've always worked in nonprofit, and I always felt like what I was doing was making a difference in people's lives. Um, but it was based on the organization's mission. So, I had to, and it was, I would say, wide, but not necessarily deep. So that was kind of like a hesitant, like, how are we going to weave
Are we going to have
philanthropy into our
impact?
mission?
Sure, sure.
And so I thought that I had to develop like this huge strategic plan on how we would weave philanthropy into our mission, and started praying about it. And God was kind of like, don't worry about it. Like, it's just going to come natural. You're going to find ways. And so after I resigned, I thought, like, I started thinking about perseverance and mental health of young people. And so I just recently like designed like a little presentation for high school kids. Really, it's on like employability skills, entrepreneurship, etc. But a bulk of it is about perseverance, and how when you're in high school, a lot of times young people think like, oh, I'm going to graduate high school and I'm going to go to college or get into a trade and I'm going to get married, have children. And they just kind of think
They just
about
plot it
this
out, right? Yes. Yep.
linear, like this path that just goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I want to show them like the realness of it, that like it might go like this. And, yeah. So my husband was like, how is this going to work? Are you going to feel like you're making a difference? Are you going to be happy doing this? And it's interesting all the ways, like parking lot and pavement maintenance. There are so many different ways, regardless if it's that or if it's mosquito or dance school or whatever it is. There are still so many different ways that you could be a difference maker. Like I'm noticing, like with our staff, the way we could pour into them and help them develop, not just professionally, but also personally, and navigate challenges that they have outside of work. I'm noticing um, how I personally present myself, and maybe being like an inspiration. I don't know. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but like to my nieces and other.
There's no maybe. You are. You ventured out on business ownership. You're here because you are an inspiration, Holly. That story you just told about what you had to overcome, both physically, emotionally, there's no maybe. You are an inspiration. I love hearing this. I don't want you to think maybe. It's yes.
Well, I think
It's a resounding
maybe I
yes.
hope that, if anything, that story helps people see obstacles as just like a bump in the road. Um, I think I shared this with Mike. I texted him whenever I decided to quit, but I think I shared with him, in the very beginning, anytime like obstacles would come that seemed just like, oh, this is going to put us under, you know what I mean? They just seemed, we were kind of like getting knocked out and we were staying down. And as time passed, we started building up this perseverance where we weren't no longer getting knocked out. Like we were still getting punched, still
Yes.
having like
Of
the
course.
problem
That's
solved.
life. Yes. But not getting
But we were
knocked
kind of
out.
like, okay,
Yeah.
you swung, you hit me. Okay, cool. Let's keep moving. Let's figure out this solution and keep moving. So I was telling Mike like about resigning and saying, that fear really had a grip on me, because I thought that every time something challenging came up, that I was going to be stuck down, that I was knocked out, and that was it. Like, will this be the thing that takes me over the edge? Now it's kind of like, no, so there's this perseverance that you learn
Yes. It's
from
grit,
business
right?
ownership.
It's internal grit. Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And that's what you talked about, was this whole emotional battle. and how you owned it. I want to read this to you. We called John Evans and told him that we had the opportunity to host you on this podcast. And I want you to hear what he said about you. He said, I am so proud of Holly and Tony. Not only are they such amazing people, but they're amazing entrepreneurs. Their story is one full of perseverance. You just talked about that. Grit, integrity, and faith. It is an honor to be partnered with them. I can't wait for them to see how their value based approach to running their business will lead them into an incredible enterprise. I'll be first in line for their autobiography. I just, he knows your journey. He talked so many of those words he used, you used, right? He talked about perseverance. He talked about grit. He talked about faith. I have goosebumps. This has been just an amazing conversation. I'm inspired. I love that I'm a fellow franchisee with you in this business. I love that you are finding purpose and inspiring others. I hope you know that you are. Holly, thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into your incredible untold franchisee story. And big congrats on
Absolutely.
your success. Big
Yeah.
congrats.
Thank you so much for
Thank
hosting.
you.
And your team is fantastic.
Thank you.
So very helpful. And you too, I think, are an inspiration to a lot of
Oh,
people.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you.